Hello and welcome to the Met Éireann Research Call 2024 webinar. My name is Patrick Forney. I am the Research Funding and Support Manager at Met Éireann. Thank you for attending this webinar. This is today's agenda. We will first introduce Met Éireann's Weather and Climate Research Programme and then delve into the Research Call 2024 in particular. First, we'll introduce the topics, and then the terms and conditions, and then the submission process. And we'll go through questions and answers. Any questions that you may have, please put it in the Q&A section of your Teams meeting, and we'll moderate those questions and try to answer as many as possible. If we can't answer all of them, we'll put them all up on our website afterwards. So the Met Éireann Weather and Climate Research Programme is essentially in support of a national research policy of Impact 2030 to build Ireland's research and innovation. And we really do so to build capacity in Ireland in weather and climate research science. And we do so in collaborations with our many partners in other research funding organizations. And in particular, the Met Éireann Weather and Climate Research Programme is to support our strategy in Met Éireann. So it's very much applied research to support our goals in Met Éireann to build ready for change Ireland, to preparing Ireland for changing weather and climate. And this is a snapshot of our really fresh off the press strategic plan for 2024-2034, which will be available to you in the next few days. And gives you the a very sneak preview of our goals, which are here in front of you. With the first one, to support multi-hazard, impact-based decision making for weather and flooding events. Our second goal is around climate services, to develop user-driven, user-oriented climate services to support national response resilience to climate change impacts. Our third goal is to provide an effective authoritative voice in strategic leadership on weather and climate in Ireland. The fourth goal is to enhance scientific excellence. So this is really very much the core of the Research Call 2024 and all of our weather and climate research program activities. Goal 5 is in augmenting the science base and technology and infrastructure. And goal 6 is to support expert workforce in Ireland. So the first thing we're going to talk about in terms of the Research Call 2024 is the research topics. And I've got expert on hand here they're going to give us a little overview of each topic. First of all, we're going to talk about the Translate program, which is the first topic of interest for the Research Call. And there are 3 subtopics for the Translate program. And Claire Scannell is going to go through all of these in detail. The second research topic of interest here is the multi-hazard flood forecasting topic, and Kieran Broderick is going to talk about the objectives of the research interest that we're looking for here. And the final one is around weather radar applications, and Sinead Duffy is going to talk about the objectives of this call. So if I can invite Claire Scannell to give us a little overview of the Translate program, please. Claire, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Patrick. Welcome, everyone. As Patrick said, my name is Claire Scannell, and I'm part of the Climate Services Division within Met Éireann, and I'm responsible for the Translate program as a whole for Met Éireann. So the Translate 3 call is the third iteration of the Translate program. So we've had 1 and 2 over the last 4 years. 2 will be completed, and Translate 2 will be completed at the end of July this year, or well, next year. So again, just as an overview, it brings together kind of members of the Irish climate change community to develop and mainstream the national climate change scenarios across multiple timescales. And we're hoping to continue the tradition of translating this climate information into effective climate services for decision making. Some of the key objectives of the Translate 3 program, again, these build on the previous iterations. All information can be found on the Translate webpage in Met Éireann. But the main objectives for Translate 3 are to develop and expand the climate projection data set that we have. It's currently CMIP 5 being updated to CMIP 6 models at the moment. To develop a new annual to decadal time set as well. We want to develop scalable and reproducible climate services, enhance the uptake of climate information, enhance the communication across all audiences of climate information, and to support the national framework for climate services. Now, Translate 3 is slightly different to Translate 1 and 2 in that it's a 4-year program. The previous iterations were both 2-year programs, and there's 3 subtopics within the Translate 3 program as a whole. The first being underpinning data, the second being climate extremes, and the 3 being climate services. Now, these weren't just pulled out of a hat. These kind of themes have been kind of developed due to quite a hefty amount of stakeholder engagement and gap analysis of what's missing within the community. When applying for the subtopics, we have kind of key things that we'd ideally like you to think about when you're building your proposal. Within the underpinning data team, we've kind of got 3 main subtopics. We've updating the climate projections. As mentioned, they're currently being updated to CMIP 6. These could be expanded. And also thoughts on CMIP 7, which is being fast-tracked in the next couple of years and will be within the timescale of the Translate programme. The second is the development of an annual to decadal time set, which is currently missing for Ireland. There's a couple of international data sets out there, but we don't have anything bespoke like we do at the climate timescale. And also kind of looking at the climate indicator space for the adaptation planning. The second then, climate extremes. Again, some things that we'd like people to consider in the proposals, looking at Ireland's changing risk to extreme events, compound events, so when multiple things happen at the same time, and event-based climate storylines, which are gaining traction kind of internationally, but also have kind of rated quite highly when we test these on stakeholder groups as well. And finally, the climate services topic. And again, here we're kind of thinking multi-sectoral climate services, multi-hazard climate services, or systems approaches to climate services. Now, for the first 2 topics, we consider proposals up to 4 years. They can be quite chunky. For climate services, we're considering proposals up to 2 years in duration throughout the project. And again, if there's a lot of kind of further information and detailed information available from Met Éireann. If you contact Patrick, he'll be able to send you out any supplementary information that goes into these things in a bit more detail and the duration and budgets of the projects as well. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Claire. That's fantastic. So hopefully that gave you an awful lot of more insight into what the objectives of this research topic is, and if you want more information, as Claire said, feel free to contact us. So next we're going to go to the next topic on flood forecasting, and Kieran Broderick is here to give us a little bit more of an outline. Kieran?
So thanks, Patrick. So my name is Kieran Broderick, and I'm working on this proposal with Ryan McGeady, and we both work in the Flood Forecasting Centre in Met Éireann. So we've recently begun to provide an operational flood forecasting service, and this research project really is all about trying to assist in the provision of that service by looking at multi-hazard flood forecasting. So we all know that flooding is a critical natural hazard in Ireland, and the risks which come from flooding are increasing in line with changes in climate and the frequency and characteristics of extreme weather events. So estuarine areas then face combined coastal and fluvial flood hazards. And the goal of this project really is to develop an integrated multi-hazard flood forecasting model, which combines the risk of coastal and fluvial flood events. So looking at the combined dynamics of coastal and fluvial flood. The topics really, it covers everything from data collection to model development, testing of models, and looking at the model's performance under different flood scenarios. So the overall objectives then are to really conduct a kind of a desktop study, a high-level study looking into what the current approaches are for coupled modeling, to identify the data requirements to support modeling and any gaps which may exist in current observation networks in terms of how we can meet these modeling objectives. Then it's to look at developing coupled flood models and to simulate historical scenarios. Now, we're not making any preemptive decisions on what kind of model. It just has to be a model that can capture both fluvial and coastal dynamics. Then we'd be interested in testing and validating the models for vulnerable regions, and then to provide recommendations for future flood forecasting strategies in this area. Overall, then really it's coupled fluvial coastal model, which could be potentially deployed in an operational setting. And that would be developed then for Ireland's key estuaries. Overall, then we need to provide insights and interactions between river discharge, tides, and storm surges, and then recommendations for future observation networks, which would bring it into line with international standards. So the duration of the project is up to 24 months and the budget is 400k.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Kieran. So we're going to move on to the third topic, and we have Sinead Duffy to give us a little bit of an insight on the topic and the two subtopics. Thanks, Sinead.
Thanks, Patrick, and welcome to everyone. Yeah, so as you may be aware, so I'm a radar meteorologist working in the operations division of Met Éireann, and we've been. Sorry, I think
we're getting some feedback. If you can try to mute yourselves. Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, Sinead.
No worries. I'll just hang on.
I'm trying to.
I can't even see. Oh yeah, great.
Thanks, Sinead.
So you may be aware from using the website that the radar is one of our key services that we provide for real-time precipitation monitoring. And over the past couple of years, we've been working hard on improving the current network, upgrading the infrastructure, and planning to expand the network from 2, as it currently is, to 4, an extra 4, so 6 in total. In the network. There's a couple of drivers for that. For enhanced precipitation monitoring, we know there's kind of gaps where things are literally under the radar or they're blocked by mountains, so we're putting some extra radars around to fill those gaps, to also support Kieran and Ryan and everyone in the flood forecast division with input into flood models and severe weather detection support to our colleagues in flood and to the public, and also in the long term support to our colleagues in climate. So with these upgrades that we're doing for the network, we kind of are looking at any research gaps to develop our research areas. So we've identified 2 kind of key areas. They're quite applied. One is the identification and mitigation of wind turbine interference. So radars and wind turbines are not the best of friends, but there's a need for both of them. So we want to look at how we can identify wind turbines in the radar data, develop a tool to minimize the effect of the wind turbines on the data, and for that to potentially be used in the real-time data processing chain. And at the moment we have one of our 2 radars been updated. The new radar installed in Shannon last year can be used. It's got a wind farm within about 15k, so there's a couple of case studies there, and over time as well we'll be upgrading the Dublin radar and expanding our network in the southwest, the southeast, the Midwest, and the northwest. So if you're thinking of applying, we were kind of thinking who might be interested in this, and so anyone with a data science background, working in data science, anybody in the engineering section, electrical engineering or radio engineering, people who are interested in data in general, and then of course people interested in weather, and I think renewable energy is what I meant to put on that one. So for this first topic, it's the same as the other one, max 36 months duration. There's a budget of up to 60,000. And that budget is applicable to one or more of the subtopics. So we might move on to the second topic, Patrick, or
Sure.
Great.
Yep.
So we've a real case study for the second research area. Transport Infrastructure Ireland have identified heat maps of crashes along the motorway network. So there's sections of the M7 around Bird Hill towards Limerick, and between Limerick, Ennis, and up to Gort, which have high instances of crashes during hail events. So we want to look at using the Shannon data, which is now dual pole and gives us the opportunity to investigate hail events, because we can determine the shape and size of the hydrometeors and identify hail, hopefully. So investigate those hail events using the Shannon dual pole data. And also TII's Traffic Infrastructure Ireland's data from their network of instruments on the roads that they've installed in the last year or so, and then review the algorithms that are within our processing chain for classifying the hydrometeors as hail, rain, or whatever else. Develop an application or a prototype application or some case studies to start using the radar data, NWP weather model data, and real data from the TIA hail monitoring networks. So that should hopefully start a process maybe of providing forecasters or TII with the tools to monitor and give maybe a heads up of hail events in specific areas, so there people can go on the ground and actually start gritting or clearing anything they need to clear. So it's a very applied one, this one. And again, who should apply? Anyone who's interested in data, anyone in the engineering space, people in machine learning and AI, and people indeed with an interest in weather and road safety, and that has a similar duration, max 36 months and up to 600,000.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Sinead. That's fantastic, and hopefully this has given you all a real insight into those research topics that you may not otherwise have thought when reading the description, which is kind of a summary. And as you can see, it's all really in support of Met Éireann's objectives, Met Éireann's strategy, Met Éireann's goals, and from the really a varied amount of areas in observations, in instrumentations, in climate science, in flood hydrology science. So it's really an interesting program this year, really quite varied, and hopefully there'll be something for everyone to really support the delivery of weather, climate and flooding services in Met Éireann, and also in building, like I said in the start, building the research capacity in Ireland that will support really useful societal outcomes, such as building the weather and climate services. So hopefully it'll be somebody for everybody, and we're really looking forward to seeing your application. So in recap, the budget for those research call topics, the Translate program has 3 subtopics. The first 2 subtopics under the underpinning data and understanding risk of climate extremes are both of maximum proposals of maximum 4 years duration with maximum of budget of 600,000. And the third subtopic is of for climate services is of durations of maximum 24 months with a maximum budget of 300,000. Our second topic around multi-hazard flood forecasting is for projects of maximum 24 months duration with maximum budgets of 400,000. And our third subtopic on radar applications, as described, with two subtopics for proposals of maximum 36 months durations of maximum budget of 600k. For proposals in that third subtopic addressing one or two or both subtopics. If it's not clear, you're more than welcome to ask us any questions. We can just clarify it afterwards. So bearing in mind the deadlines for the Research Call 2024, it was opened roughly just under a month ago on the 12th of November 2024. And the deadlines for applications for applicants is on Friday the 10th of January 2025 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So make sure you adhere to those times, because the system will shut down after that time, and the applications will not be accepted after that time. A week after, there will be a week between which your applications and the organization's approval pass, and the deadline for organizational approval is Friday the 17th of January 2025 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And should the organizations wish to send back the applications to the applicant, they can do so, and they have to do so within that week. And the results are expected to be published towards the end of Q1 2025. So I'll go through some of the terms and conditions again that were included in the document that's on the Research Call 2024 webpage very briefly, and then if you have any questions, because there's some points that might be missing in terms of conditions, that we will publish a Q&A page on our submission platform and also on our web, met.ie. So the applicants have to be hosted by a higher education institution in Ireland. That's the prerequisite for an application, that the lead applicant is hosted by a higher education institution in Ireland. But applications can be made with other collaborators and partners in other institutions. Partners will be defined on the project are from a different Irish HEI and can receive funding. On the other hand, collaborators will be taking part in the project and can be from outside of Ireland. And there are some specific sort of funding specificities for collaborators that some cost categories might not be eligible for collaborators. And I can ask questions that I put up the frequently and ask questions, answers there. So the specifics for the Translate program, as Claire has outlined, there's really a wish for real synergies between applications. So an applicant can apply for one more or than one subtopic, but at least the proposal should indicate the relationship with the one or the other topics. And they also should demonstrate that how the synergies between subtopics could be achieved. Should they so wish to just apply for one topic, that's okay, but then they can just indicate how their application will support the other subtopics. And as for like all applications in general, this is really just a real example of knowledge transfer between the research community and our community in Met Éireann and our researchers. Is really just to collaborate closely with Met Éireann in terms of steering committee involvement, and also in terms of the time that might be spent in Met Éireann or not for the. But it's encouraged that you look at your collaborations with Met Éireann closely. And another encouragement is that you seek international collaboration to support your application, should it be sort of possible. And we're also strongly supporting early career researchers and the recruitment of PhD researchers, should it be possible for either duration of the whole proposal or part of the proposal. Funding of PhD researchers is advised where possible, and we're strongly encouraging to go with a minimum annual stipend of 25,000 as recommended by the report. So I'll go through the submission process very quickly, but should you have any more questions, feel free to add them to the Q&A section. So you'll be invited to log into this webpage, metéireann.smartsimple.ie, and you'll be seeing this landing page with a short description of the Met Éireann's Weather and Climate Research Programme on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side with the login and details, and a button that invites you to register. So should you not have gone to this website at all before, you would go to the register section first, and you'll register as a user, fill in the details, and get a password, and then you go to log in, and you'll be landing into this page where you see a welcome to the Met Éireann grant portal with your profile, which you can edit at your leisure. Same for your organization profile and the frequently asked questions. That's where the FAQs will be published after this webinar. And you'll see the funding opportunities there with this sort of magnifying glass icon. You click on this icon, and you'll be seeing all 5 funding opportunities under the Research Call 2024, with the 3 subtopics of the Translate program, and the 1 topic for the flood topic, and 1 applications for the weather radar applications. So you'll be clicking on the Apply Now button of the Research Call topic of interest to you, and you can do so for all the topics that you're interested in. And you'll be landing into a page that asks you to fill in your application details, your application acronym, your duration, the financial support requested, etc. And it's a familiar website with the Smart Simple interface. And should you run into trouble, you can send us an email, ask questions of where the problem is. You can save draft even if you haven't filled in the mandatory fields, for example, and it'll show you a page that I just pasted in here in the presentation slides, where you go to the project information, and you can see that some of those fields aren't filled in, but you can continue with your application separately on your desktop. And some people have asked me if there's any template. So we don't have any specific template. We're requesting a 20-page PDF document to be uploaded as part of the description of your application, and you can fit in as many sort of different sections as possible, as you wish, to describe your proposal to support your application with the topics that are, and the headings that are suggested in the terms and condition. You'll be then submitting your application, and it will go to your organizations for approval. And as I said, the approver in your organization can just send your application back should it need to be tweaked, and then you'll be resubmitting it, and your organizations will then be approving your applications, and it'll be sent then to the portal for review. So the next stage will be the evaluation process of the application, and it'll go through an international peer review in January, February 2025. That's what's planned. We've got a couple of people that will be reviewing in the applications in our international colleagues, and the recommendations made by the reviewers will be sent to Met Éireann, and the funding decisions will be made by Met Éireann in and around the end of Q1 2025. So that brings us to the end of the presentations, and I hope you find this useful, that it has described the topics in sort of greater details. But if you have any more questions on the topics or on the terms and conditions or the submission process or evaluation process, please, now this is, we've got about half an hour left, and we'll be happy to answer either myself for the terms and conditions, etc., or any of the experts on hand there on the topics. So either you post your questions and answers in the Q&A section, and I can read them out and then answer the questions, or if you're happy to address the question, bearing in mind the webinar is recorded, you can do so also if you want to. You raise your hand and the floor is yours. So I might just go through the first questions that were asked on the Q&A section. The maximum overhead rate is 30%. We're not prescribing any overhead rate per se for institutions, but the maximum 30% is what's usually used. And do you know what personal scales we should be using? IUA scales. So IUA scales are usually the salary scales that are used. Yes. So thank you for those questions. I might just I'm going to stop sharing if that's okay. And there were other questions asked in advance, and I'm going to go through them, just waiting for the other questions to come in, if that's okay. So the question on overhead rate were already asked, so that answered that. So the maximum overhead rate of 30%, and the salary scale is the IUA research salary scale. And if people are not familiar with the IUA research scale, we'll put the link on the page that we'll publish on our Q&A web page. There was a question around, is it possible to revert an application to the applicant to make changes? I think I mentioned that in the presentation earlier. So yes, between the 10th of January and the 17th of January, applications can be going back and forth between the approver and the applicant should there need to be changes made. And is it possible to request more than one approver to be set up? Yes, I think that's possible to have more than one approver if colleagues want to have more than approvers in the research offices in universities and technical universities. Is there anything other questions in the chat or in the Q&A section? Okay, so I'm going to go through. So I have a good question here. According to the call documentation, the applicants must be employed or plan to be employed in the host organization. Can the funding used for supporting employing the main applicant? Yes, that is correct. So the funding can be used to support the main applicant in a host institution, which must be a higher education institution in Ireland. Yes. Would an application made without the inclusion of a funded PhD student be at a disadvantage relative to applications of PhD students? No, it won't be a disadvantage. So as I said, it's encouraged to support as many early career researchers, including PhD students, as possible. But the merit of the application will be based on the excellence of the science and the impact and how it will be achieved. It's not necessarily a disadvantage not to have PhD students. We're encouraging as much as possible, in particular with the topics for which the 4-year projects are sought, but it's not going to be marked down, let's say, if there's no PhD students. In terms of the salary costs, can we take possible inflation post June 2026? Usually, the salary scales will give you an indication of possible increments, and I think that's where you go through. It's possible to take that into account, so long as from our point of view, so long as the budget fits in within the maximum budget. The salaries, we're not prescribing any sort of rate for salaries, only just to advise to adhere to close to the IUA salary scales. How many projects are going to be funded under topic 1.2? So as mentioned, it's if I understand correctly, that's 1.2 is the subtopic on climate extreme under the Translate program for maximum 4 years durations. And Claire, maybe you might give us a little hint on. But we're going to go through all applications, the recommendations from the international peer review, and make a decision on funding. But it's possible that there may be more than one application that be funded. Claire, any indications of?
Yeah, I mean, it is possible that we could fund more under any of the subtopics 1, 2, or 3. And I mean, we say a maximum of 4 years, but you could have a really good 2-year project under the climate extremes as well. So, I mean, yeah, we can, there's no set number as of yet. We have a set budget, and it really depends on what comes in through the call process on what we fund. Just somebody else put up a question on more information on that topic as well while I'm here. So there's a lot of kind of supplementary information that we can send out post this. So if you get in touch with Patrick or Amy, they'll be able to forward you any of the additional details that go into these topics in much greater detail in the supplementary material.
Yeah, great. I know I'm going through one after the next. They may be just jumping from one sort of question area to the next. Are applicants required to have a specific number of years post PhDs? There's no requirements for the number of years post PhD. No, so every applicant is seen based on their experience and merit, and what we're looking for is really just impactful, excellent research, and not prescribing any sort of number of years post PhD. No. Topic 2, maybe Kieran, is there an answer to does coastal modelling include wave modelling?
Yeah, I can take that. I wouldn't say necessarily it has to include wave modeling. We're leaving it very open. There may be some constraints around what observational data is available. And ultimately, we're looking for a model which can produce something sensible in line with international standards that can be run in an operational setting. So we would leave that up to to whoever is proposing, and then to go through the review process.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. Next one, can research teams make edits to the proposal after the 10th of January? If they're sent back to them by internal approvals, yes. Toing and froing between the 10th and 17th is possible, with amendments being made possible. So, is there any more questions? So the IOA scales, the overhead rate, and okay, I might just see more now coming through. Is the maximum budget amount per call topic inclusive of overhead rate? Yes, that includes the override. Yeah. Can the international collaborators have a share of the fund? So these questions also came through in before this webinar, and I think I will put up an explainer separately in our FAQs. And as I said, the partners could be from a different organization than yours, in different HEI, and they could receive funds. You can share the funds. In relation to international collaborators, what's envisaged here is really just to have some categories of cost that could be given to the collaborators, and I will list them out in an FAQ. We're really supporting, Irish research, and but where possible, if it's really important, really required, some costs can be given to an international collaborator, and I will list them out in a. But it's not envisaged to just fund, for example, salaries of permanent members of staff or things like that. It's just really possible travel costs or other items like that, or the contract of a specific researcher for the specific duration of the research project. But I will list them out in a separate document so that it's very clear to everybody. How many proposals will be funded in total, one per topic, or depends on the proposal's quality? Yes, that's a good question. We don't have a prescription here, and it really will depend on the quality and the impact of the recommendations from the international peer review and how many proposals will be funded. So there could be many. There could be a few per topic and per subtopic also, as Claire mentioned. It's not necessarily that, for example, a subtopic in the transfer program for a maximum of 4 years doesn't need to be 4 years, but if it's really impactful for 3 or less, that will be marked just according to the quality of the project. So when are the projects expected to start? So usually with the decision at the end of Q1 2025, we're expecting negotiations to start very shortly thereafter, and we're expecting for the project to start in Q2, Q3 2025. Really. How do we set up approvers? Thanks for the question. So you sent an email to researchfunding@met.ie, and you ask us to be an approver for your organization. And beforehand, you can go to the Met Éireann Smart Simple platform to register as a user, and we'll make you an organizational approver that way. But we'll outline the steps in the FAQ as well. Could partners outside of Ireland get funding? If yes, what are the restrictions in terms of eligible costs? I think I went through this with regards to some cost categories that will be eligible for funding for international collaborators, and I will list them out in a document afterwards. If a proposal is made to cover one element of strand 2, should the maximal value of the project be reduced to a 1/3 of strand funding? If I understand, so I'm going to have to read that question again, Carolyn. Proposal made to cover one element of strand 2. Should the maximum of the project be?
Sorry, Patrick. Maybe I'll
Caroline, sorry, I'm
explain.
trying. I'm
Yeah.
trying to. Is it? Thanks for coming online. If you can.
So, for example, under climate extreme, there's one.
Oh, you mentioned that. Okay, so I was with flooding. Sorry.
Yeah.
The subtopic of translate. Thank you. Yes. Hello?
Because the 4 years and a maximum of 600,000. But for example, if we were going to bid to cover one of the 3 elements under climate extremes, should we limit then the total value of the bid to 200,000 just to allow the funding for the other 2 elements?
Good
Probably
question. To me, it would be a yes. But can I ask Claire what's envisaged here? If you want to address this as well, to advise Caroline to when building a proposal.
Thanks, Caroline. I mean, yeah, I think as long as the proposal should be scaled appropriately. So if it's a 2-year proposal touching on one topic, then the budget should be scaled according to that. However, you could have a 2 or 3 year project, with multiple postdocs or trying to touch more than one of those topics, and then you'd scale the budget accordingly as well. So I think it's kind of a common sense scale accordingly to what you're trying to achieve, or which subtopic or element of the themes you're trying to approach.
Yes. No, it was very clear that, for example, if we were doing, for example, say Ireland's changing risk, but we weren't doing the case studies, I could see how you need to, or vice versa. So I just wanted to make sure it could be a full year project, but just one of the 3 dimensions, Claire. So thank you. That's very
no
clear.
problem. No problem.
Thanks a million
Thanks
for the question.
Paul, Patrick.
Thanks, Caroline, and thanks, Claire, for clarifying this. I know we're jumping from one sort of topic to the next in terms of addressing terms and conditions or the research topics, but bear with us. Then another question we have the question around the funding for collaborators for outside of Ireland. I will make that clear in a document afterwards. But certain cost categories are eligible for and will be listed in the document. But it's not envisaged that it's really to support Irish research but certain elements to support to bring in international collaborators will be made available insofar as like possible elements like travel and other cost categories, and like I said, possibly the salaries for just one or 2 or whatever researchers for just the duration of that project would be made eligible. What letters of support are required, and from the host department, in an HEI, collaborators, any other. So it's not a requirement, and we're not asking for people to have letters of support. But if that's a good addition to a proposal, for sure, please seek letters of support from internally, as you mentioned there, from your host department, or from outside of your organization, from people that would see value in your research proposal. But it's not a requirement. Is there a budget template included? There is a budgeted template inside the submission platform with the cost categories and the years. There you fill in the template inside the platform. If there's any issues with the Met Éireann Smart Simple platform, please send us an email, because this is the first year we're using it. We used a different sort of grant management platform before, but if you have any issues, just send us an email. Okay, so we're going to 5 more minutes. And is there any more questions? I see. So the question around the clarifying the role of international collaboration in the projects, I think we'll make that very clear afterwards if it's not clear. Really just we're really supporting Irish proposals with the objective to really build the capacity in Irish research, but also, as mentioned in the terms and conditions in our presentations, we're encouraging international collaborations to link the Irish research with international partners, international colleagues. And that's where the role of the international collaborator lies, really, is just to link that Irish research with research that's carried out elsewhere, and to have the support from international researchers to your own internal research. And as mentioned, I will clarify the eligibility for the sort of the categories of cost that could be funded for international collaborators. Do you have evaluation? The questions, do you have evaluation criteria for successful applications? Could you please share it? So the evaluation criteria are in the terms and conditions. And you can see that we're basing our evaluation around impact, around excellence, and how you're going to address the research topic, and how you're going to build knowledge transfer and impact and all that. So all those marking schemes are in the terms and conditions. And if it's not very clear, I'm just going to add another description in the FAQ document. The translate themes seems very open in terms of themes compared to the other streams. There could be many diverse and great research proposals under translate themes. So that's just a general comment. I don't know if you want to address that, Claire. We're just looking for. I think this is the important point that's made there. That's just a. It's not prescriptive. It's like really just trying to build the capacity in and across the whole research community. So we're not looking for anything in particular, but just to address those research topics. And this is where it's going to be really interesting to see how many varied people coming from maybe varied background can just support those topics and can work together. Or any other questions? My research proposal is under 1.2 only. Do I have to mention the links with 1.1 and 1.3 in my applications? So yes, I think there's an element of that. We said in our presentation and in terms and conditions that for the Translate program, Claire, just correct me if I'm wrong, but that we'd like to see, even if you're applying for just one subtopic, how your proposal will link in with the other subtopics. Just Claire, if you want to say one or two words on that.
Yeah. So we the way the new Translate is being framed is to allow people to just apply for a particular research area of interest, but we would like to see how that could link into the other areas as well. And then, once the program is up and running, we'll kind of try to establish connections between the research topics or the different sub-themes for the duration of the program as well, to enable kind of knowledge transfer and things. So it is important to think how, even if you're not connected to the other subtopics, it's important to think in your proposal how it's related to what the other topics could be doing without, knowing what the other topics are doing as well.
Yeah, but it's really going to be evaluated based on what you write in your application and on the merit of what you'd like to achieve and address. So really just do not be afraid to just apply for one subject with the strength of your application and with the interest of that you have in mind. Okay, so we're just coming to the end of the hour. Thank you so much for your interest in the Research Call 2024 at Met Éireann. We're going to record all of those questions and try to answer them as much as possible. If we really haven't answered your questions, please feel free to send us an email at researchfunding@met.ie, and we'll try to answer your questions directly. And for the questions that are answered directly, we'll also put those questions in the FAQs for everyone to see. So I think I'm just looking at the last questions. I think we're there. So thank you so much again for your attendance and participation at this webinar. Thank you so much for your interest in the Research Call again, and looking forward to seeing your applications coming in. And should you have really any questions, just send us an email at researchfunding@met.ie. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.